Okay, friends, welcome to the Bell Phillips Forum. My name is Emilio Dettori. I'm the Executive Director of the Milwaukee Turners here at Turner Hall. We're very excited that you can join us for this episode, very important one that's near and dear to my heart, which is on the Milwaukee County Credible Messenger program. We're very excited to be partnering with Kids Forward and the Youth Justice Wisconsin initiative, as well as to have so many incredible folks from Milwaukee County here with us today in order to bring you this program. Today's episode will offer a high-level description of the Credible Messenger program, outcome data from the first year, and perspectives of team members and partners. After the panel, we are going to be able to take questions, but you're encouraged to ask questions either on Facebook, where this is streaming, or here in the chat for the Zoom. And those will be curated and monitored by our co-producer, Chrissy Fung, and by Ben Hall, who's with us. We're going to review a few logistics to ensure that our forum is accessible to all. Captioning is available, so if you click on the live transcript CC button, the CC icon to use captioning or to turn it off, and then click show subtitle, click view full transcript to see the full captioning stream, or you can use the chat feature throughout the briefing. If you need assistance, we'll monitor the chat. If you're watching this on Facebook, there's a Google plugin which enables you to also add chat, which is great. I have added auto transcription for this program as well. This nonpartisan virtual forum is being hosted by the Milwaukee Turners in partnership, especially today, with Kids Forward and the Youth Justice Wisconsin initiative. We'd also like to thank our friends from Disability Rights Wisconsin, Marquette University Center for Urban Research, Teaching, and Outreach, Rid Racism Milwaukee, Made Men Worldwide, MICA, the National Lawyers Guild Milwaukee, Turning Tables Tavern, and Wisconsin Voices for helping make this program possible. Once again, I'd like to welcome you and remind you all to vote on November 8th. You can find out more information on myvote.wi.gov, and additional nonpartisan information on voting may be found on Disability Rights Wisconsin's website, which is disabilityrightswi.org. Again, this forum is being simultaneously shown on Facebook, and we invite you over there to share it. It's also going to be edited and hosted on our website and YouTube pages. For those of you watching us on Wisconsin Eye or channel 995 or 363, we invite you to pop over to Facebook and share the episode. Viewers are encouraged to ask questions in chat or on our Facebook post, where they're going to be curated. You won't be able to have the opportunity to ask live questions, but we will share them with our distinguished panelists. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Erica Nelson of Kids Forward to introduce the program. Erica?
Yes, thank you, Emilio. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Erica Nelson. I'm Advocacy Director for Kids Forward. Kids Forward is an anti-racist statewide policy center, and we are pleased again to collaborate with Milwaukee Turner and all the folks here today through our Youth Justice Wisconsin initiative. Youth Justice Wisconsin initiative, YJW, is a solution-focused initiative that strives to coordinate, educate, and convene diverse stakeholders around necessary change to achieve true justice for all youth in all communities ages 10 to 24. And by true justice, we mean equitable access to what they need to thrive. Too many young people are unnecessarily caught up in our youth justice system, with a disproportionate number of them being youth of color. Community organizations and people with lived experience who are closest to the needs and the solutions have historically been shut out of receiving public funding to provide youth and community center services that address the root causes of trauma and racial disparities. Milwaukee County's Credible Messenger program is a key milestone in turning this around. Credible Messenger is an evidence-based and nationally tested strategy for responding to the needs of youth with the most complex needs by training adults with lived experience as mentors. The mentors are able to respond 24 hours a day to youth in order to prevent, interrupt, and redirect situations that otherwise might lead to harm or criminal justice involvement. They also provide an important relationship of support. Young people need to be seen, heard, and supported to grow through their challenges. The panel before you, and it's a stellar panel, can share some of the barriers, some of the impact the impact it's had and they've experienced so far. It is not this is not a training for implementing a program, so it will lead to more questions maybe than it will initially answer. We will do our best to direct you to more resources. Please help me welcome the following: David Muhammad, Deputy Director of the Department of Health and Human Services for Milwaukee County. Kelly Pethke, Administrator, Children, Youth, and Family Services for Milwaukee County. TJ Cobb, Enterprise Quality Director, Milwaukee County. Regina Whiyee, Assistant Administrator, Children, Youth, and Family Services, Milwaukee County. Chaz Fortune, Credible Messenger, Youth Advocate Program Incorporated. Danique Seymour, Zero Youth Corrections Manager, Milwaukee County. And Charlene Moore, Director of Urban Underground, Youth Justice Milwaukee. At this point, I will hand it over to David Muhammad to frame out how Milwaukee County got into this work and why.
Absolutely. Thank you, Erica. Thanks, Emilio, and everybody who's watching via Facebook. Shout out to the Turners, Youth Justice Wisconsin, DHHS, and all of the community partners, particularly those Credible Messenger agencies and the work that they do. As was stated, Credible Messenger is a strategy. It is not a brand or label that is owned by any one entity, but it is something that we do want to define for folks. First, let me say that it is healing-centered work that we are attempting to do in Milwaukee County that demonstrates our commitment to public health, as well as encouraging and helping to advance grassroots approaches to accountability and public safety. For me, personally, what brought me to this work was the involvement that I had in terms of community work, in terms of peacemaking in the city of Milwaukee. As a young person, I was involved in the justice system. And so I knew the type of interventions that worked for me at a certain point and that could work if supported and to scale. And I saw the disinvestment in youth from ages of 12 to 17, definitely as a part of the work that it took to create the city of Milwaukee's Blueprint for Peace. The work that we're currently doing as DHHS with Zero Youth Corrections, as well as our work to advance our future state for the Department of Health and Human Services at Milwaukee County. So I saw a need and a gap along with our partners in CYFS. At the time, it was Mark Mertens, and now it's Kelly Pethke, but there are others who are definitely involved. But before I continue, I just want to say for the record, a credible messenger, as it's defined by the Credible Messenger Justice Institute, there are people who can motivate and cultivate transformative relationships with people with whom they share similar backgrounds. And in the context of the work that we're talking about, we are talking about people who have some lived experience with the criminal legal system, but it's not necessarily a requirement to do this type of transformative mentoring. They're credible not because they went through a training, they're credible because the community said they're credible. And they're credible because of the population that is most impacted by the criminal justice system sees this as a trusted partner who can advocate for them without deepening their involvement in the system. So as DHHS, we obviously and CYFS see many of our young people in the city of Milwaukee and in Milwaukee County who have been victims of gun violence, who have been perpetrators of it in some instances, or victims of fatal auto theft incidents that we see carrying on with our city. And so we see this as a strategy both for accountability and public safety. This transformative work, as I'd like to just briefly outline, is about sharing power with community and sharing power with those most impacted in our community. It is about removing barriers institutionally and building new supportive structures to advance this work. And before I kind of go into just briefly how we did it, I want to say a word about people with lived experience. Oftentimes we have folks who have some gatekeeping authority in institutions, and they talk about folks who have lived experience or credible messengers as though they are paraprofessional or peer support. And I'd like to encourage people to resist the temptation to try and fit this work into a box that's familiar to you. The credible messenger is the direct practitioner. It is the person, they are the person who can have the greatest impact. And so that's a paradigm shift, not only for folks doing the work, but for the folks trying to support the work in systems. In 2020, the county passed an ordinance, the county board that reversed a long-standing county rule for about 20 years or so that prohibited formerly justice-involved persons from working with youth in our children, youth, and family services in intervention programs. That was a carryover from the war on drugs, and it was actually harder in terms of its enforcement at the county level than it was at the state level. So there were plenty of people who were making a difference in the lives of young people in community that couldn't work with those young people if they were under supervision within our detention center or as a part of their aftercare successfully. We worked internally and we saw the youth AIDS dollars of CYFS, or the Division of Youth and Family Services at the time, millions of dollars that were spent on unrelated efforts, unrelated to youth and their families. And we made sure that we made the institutional decision to shift those dollars back to youth prevention efforts. So that's what we did to fund this pilot. We established with the work of our team at CYFS, definitely want to shout out Lynn Lewis, who was part of the team at the time, who is now the director of 4-1 for Life, which is Milwaukee's violence interruption team. We established partnerships with the Credible Messenger Justice Center out of New York, as well as other thought leaders such as Clinton Lacey and other people at New Beginnings in DC and whatnot. And so there were people who went out and saw this in other places. My personal work as a youth professional, as well, who was in the community doing some of this peacemaking work, I had relationships with people such as Dr. Akil Bashir and the Professional Community Intervention Training Institute. And so we built relationships to help make Milwaukee a part of the national network of people doing this work. We started by creating an education cohort of about 50 local youth interventionists that represented over 11 community-based organizations. And we did this training in 2020. And of those institutions that committed their staff and their time, to us, that was a demonstration that they were committed to the model. And that was a major factor for us. So of that group, we chose 5 agencies who demonstrated not only the admin capacity, but the staffing capacity, meaning that they were willing to hire people with lived experience and willing to roll their sleeves up and go into community, not in an office and not in some court mandated function, but to build relationships with people and their peer groups so that a young person didn't have to get in trouble to get some help. And so that's how the 5 agencies, who you will hear more about, YAP, 4-1 for Life, the Milwaukee Christian Center, the Running Rebels, and West Care, Wisconsin, was selected for this. This created for us a lane for people with lived experience to be direct practitioners in helping young people. It expands that for relevant persons to help lead the effort, and it really puts the public back in public safety. And so for us, the goal is not just desistance from the criminal legal system, but it's also the prevention of violence and the prevention of young people having to get in trouble to get help. And so I welcome any questions later on and honored to be a part of this program. I don't know if I'm supposed to tee it up for the next person or if I'm handing it off to the moderator, because I have my notes in front of me and I don't know who's next.
Kelly's up next.
Okay,
Kelly,
thank you.
Why don't you take it away?
All right, thank you. So Kelly Pethke, administrator for CYFS. So like David, you actually took some of my talking points. So, but I do want to talk about the impact of this program. And we call it a program. It's not a program, as David was saying. But I also want some of the conversation I want to have is around the challenges that we experienced through the implementation and some of the things we learned, and hopefully that will help you. And maybe you've experienced some of the same things. So this initiative, when we started off, it was a big lift. It took not only a lot of Milwaukee County staff, but also people in the community. Like David said, a lot of this work was already being done. It's just more formalizing it and paying people for the work that they were doing. And so one of, like David had said, we're trying to change the narrative of what youth justice is and can be here in Milwaukee County. And so when we talk about some of the challenges, David mentioned this. One challenge I always like to talk about is whenever you work with a government, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of barriers put in place. And so we had to really recognize what those challenges and barriers are and really shift how we thought we could do work and work with kids and families, but also then A lot of these barriers and red tape go, they've been in place for years. We had to go through county board approval process to change what the background checks look like. And David talked a little bit about that as well. So it's removing those red tape and being able to work with any type of county entity, government entity. So we did actually go and get a new resolution approved that allowed us to then contract with individuals who previously would not have been able to contract with in the past. Another challenge is really around seeking alignment across agencies. There's, like David said, a lot of people are doing this work. And we, for the pilot, had identified 5 different agencies to implement this strategy. And there was definitely some challenges with that because every agency has its own culture, has its own way of doing business, and really bringing everyone together. And that was honestly amazing to see how everyone did come together because they were all here for the same goals and the same purpose. And so another one huge challenge that we had and we continue to have is around resources. When I say resources, it's funding, but it's also the people. So we did have to look at how are we spending our money historically and recognizing that's not working. That doesn't work, it has not worked. And then reallocating that funding to the credible messenger strategy. So the funding is one issue, but then how do we continue to support this initiative and be able to build upon that? But it's also, resources are also the people, and the people are the most important because relationships are so much more impactful than any service program, anything you can throw at a kid. And so it's finding those people who want to do this work, we're doing this work, and we're passionate about working with the kids and the families. Another challenge I want to highlight is really around stakeholder buy-in and the role of the courts. That was a challenge we faced from the very beginning because how can a credible messenger really engage and work with the youth and make an impact? And how do we keep the courts out of that and the legal system? And that was definitely a challenge. And we made that message very clear. We said that we had to get buy-in from the presiding judge over at Children's Court and other stakeholders to where credible messengers are not involved in any of the court processes. The information is not included in the court. Any of the work done is kept out of the courtroom. And that was definitely a challenge. And we had an issue early on and it hasn't been an issue since. So that was a huge, I think, win for us. And as far as when we talk about some of the challenges, the first year was really a pilot. We did learn a lot, and you'll learn more about that in a little bit, some of those outcomes and data measures. But now we're moving into full implementation. And so that is, how can we support the credible messengers with the goal of building out that continuum of care in Milwaukee County. And this is one of the strategies that we are using here in Milwaukee. And we're working with justice involved youth, but it's also how this is something new and different is we're also working with youth before they ever get involved in the justice system. And that is something new for CYFS, to be so intentional about preventative efforts versus intervention. So that is a huge key component of this as well. And so we do want to continue to grow and replicate the success of the Credible Messenger program. And a big part of that is continuing to engage with our community, find additional resources. And this is an opportunity to bring people together in a way that has never happened here in Milwaukee County. And so with that, I am going to hand it over then to TJ Cobb, and she's going to talk with you about some data and outcomes from our pilot year of the Credible Messengers.
Thank you, Kelly. So we took an intentional approach to the evaluation with this being a new program, and just recognizing that we would need to be considering what funding would look like moving forward. We would need to prove the concept in order for the work to receive continued funding and identify sustainable sources of funding. We also knew that there would be scrutiny around does this work? So the goal was to safely reduce reliance on incarceration in favor of more age-appropriate, culturally responsive, community-based alternatives that can be preventative, interruptive, and healing. And so I'm going to be sharing with you all the summary of the evaluation framework that was used, as well as the outcomes at a high level. And I was asked to approach the data and present it as an executive summary. So we're going to share screen now. Seymour. So hopefully this provides context for understanding the goals of the program and its impact, as well as different ways we might approach a more person-centered method for measuring outcomes through qualitative data. If you have any questions, please feel free to submit them through the QA button or chat, and we will address as many as possible when we finish the panel. And so next slide, please. The purpose of this evaluation was to learn how to enhance the effort for sustainable partnerships, effective processes, and effective resource allocation. Again, just recognizing that this is a pilot, this is pilot work. We also wanted to learn how the collaborative efforts are impacting the expected outcomes, as well as learning or being able to demonstrate the value of these efforts and how to address areas of improvement. The purpose of this evaluation was also focused on guiding the refinement of the scope of work and expected outcomes and expectations of partner agencies. And then lastly, looking to drive efforts to increase the awareness of the work that's happening within this effort. And so core evaluation questions we were looking to answer was, how does the community understand credible messengers? How does the effort impact the community? How do systems and processes impact the implementation of the work? Is the effort functioning as intended? What are unexpected outcomes of this work? And then also looking at what impact or value of persons with lived experiences have on youth life outcomes. And so the approach we took was grounded in a participatory. And so this allowed us to improve the accuracy and relevance of the findings, also improve performance. It empowered our partners, build capacity, and sustain network learning and growth. And so we really wanted to ensure that we were bringing in those that were doing the work. And so in order for us to do that, we also grounded the evaluation using a culturally responsive evaluation framework. And this allowed us to move beyond only focusing on participation in one aspect of the evaluation, and looking to bring in our implementation partners as well as the youth, and starting from the very beginning and preparing for the evaluation, engaging those key stakeholders. We work with our stakeholders and partners to identify the purpose of the evaluation to begin with, and making sure that it was serving not only the needs of those who may be funding elected official leaders, but also those who are actually doing the work, those who would directly be impacted by any decisions coming from the findings. And so we work closely with our partner agencies, and I do want to just shout those individuals out who participated in this process. It was very informative in guiding all of the steps through this project. And then also with the developmental aspect to the framework, it allowed us to have rapid real-time feedback using diverse user-friendly techniques. And so with the credible messenger effort being so complex, it involved a number of different interacting elements, which makes the solutions for solving these types of problems that the work is aimed for uncertain. And so with the key stakeholders having different lenses on the work in different lanes within what they're contributing, this developmental approach allowed us to account for that and support innovation throughout this work. And so as far as data collection, we had a number of discussions that occurred to be able to address our core evaluation questions. We spent a lot of time discussing what the work is from the different perspectives and lanes that each of our agency partners have and contributing to the overall goals. We also looked at partnership feedback and just gaining insights on how processes are working, how partnerships are working. And then there's also existing data that we use to answer some of the questions, and just being mindful of, survey overload and wanting to gain insights that already exist. So for example, we were able to pull qualitative data from the Office of Violence Prevention Community Education Series, where we had our credible messenger speaking on a panel that addressed a lot of the questions that we were looking to address in this evaluation. So those are our data collection methods and our sources of data. One of the most important pieces here to note is that we were able to connect with the youth who are participating with the credible messenger mentors, and had individual interviews and small group interviews with those folks with the youth leaders in this work. So that was very exciting for us. It also spoke to the approach around cultural responsiveness, and it's not just about gathering or it's not just about engaging key stakeholders at the data collection phase, but we were also able to engage them through other pieces in determining what we would do with the findings beyond just collecting it from them. Next slide, please. So I'm going to run through some of the results. Again, this is very high level. A lot of what we heard earlier about the program and what we know now comes from what we've learned through the evaluation. So we do know that the beneficiaries and staff of partnering agencies have varied understandings of the credible messenger efforts as a program, a collective impact effort, and beyond. And so when asked how they understood the program, we saw that 56% identified this work to be more of a collective impact effort where diverse stakeholders with a common agenda and mutually aligned activities. We even heard from one youth saying it does not feel like a program, which is important to know. And I know that that was spoke on a little bit earlier, but it does speak to the impact and the reach this work has. And so also grounding us in understanding the credible messenger. I know David Muhammad spoke to this earlier about understanding what it is. And we see here, as said by a system partner agency leader, a credible messenger is a community valid person who is trusted by the community, who is not a system partner, but can work on behalf of community members to get them what they need, and without them individuals having to go deeper within the criminal or legal system. So it's definitely important for us to understand that and gaining that insight from a qualitative perspective in guiding this work. So credible messenger mentors are transforming the lives of youth with activities that are not explicitly expected or thoroughly captured. And so this findings and this results speak to the work that's happening beyond what is contracted. And so we see that our credible messenger mentors are involved with career development, helping youth connect with jobs, building their resumes, healthy relationship building. So working with their parents and coaching them, working with youth on their communication skills, their conflict resolution skills as well. There's also things that they're doing around personal responsibility. So helping with financial literacy, things like simple as grocery shopping, goal setting, and then also self-advocacy. The other piece, activities that we see here that were not explicitly expected are centered around social emotional development. So helping youth around self-awareness, coping, and self-reflection, and then also conflict mediation. And this looks like resolving bounties, de-escalating verbal and physical conflicts, as well as group-based violence interventions. And then other activities include youth advocacy. So teaching youth how to advocate for themselves, navigating through various systems, whether it's the legal court system, healthcare systems, as well as getting them involved civically. And then the credible messenger mentors are also achieving outcomes beyond what the work was designed to do. And so examples of that include helping youth with their ability to futurize, also accomplishing stable relationships, economic stability, lifelong longevity. So just as simple as saving lives, safe environments, building social capital amongst the youth and community, as well as pushing for academic success. Other outcomes that are being achieved include a sense of dignity, life skills, and many others. And so just hearing from the youth in their interviews, we wanted to understand how what value were they gaining from working with their mentors, and wanting to know what's the difference that they've seen in themselves as a result of working with their mentors. And so here are some quotes that we have from our interviews, and some of them include, I gained confidence, speaking skills, I'm more social, and I make responsible decisions. One youth said, he saved my life. I will still be out here in these streets doing the same thing, probably still stealing cars. One youth said that their mentor helped with my anger. We also hear that from a youth, he told me I would have to do work at some point, might as well do it now so I don't have to do it and work at the same time. That motivated me to start going back to school. My mentor changed my whole mindset on life. So this is the direct quotes from our youth that speaks to the impact and the value that the Credible Messenger work is having on their lives. And so 77% of the program youth have desisted since participating. And so 50 of those youth had no reoffenses. And we saw that only 4 had 2 reoffenses, with 11 at 1 reoffense. And so this is also important to note when we talk about desistance, that's the process which criminality or the individual risk or antisocial conduct declines over the life course, generally after adolescence. And so for the purposes of this this data report, desistance is measured by recidivism or reoffending in the severity of the changes. The Credible Messenger effort has an immeasurable impact on its intended target audience, youth, as well as families and communities. And so just summarizing our findings, we see that, next slide, please. Community stakeholders understand the Credible Messenger effort to be more than a program, but a diverse stakeholder group with a common agenda and mutually aligned activities that is achieving greater impact through a collective impact effort. The collaboration and coordination amongst the Credible Messenger partner agencies result in many unintended outcomes, including community capacity building and information sharing. The collaboration has resulted in community level violence prevention. And then also system engagement is a key factor to addressing the lack of visibility and awareness that limits effective processes and communication for achieving the expected outcomes of the Credible Messenger work. We also saw that the Credible Messenger mentors are saving lives of Milwaukee's most vulnerable youth by means that are not accounted for. The lived experience of the mentors gives them the ability to positively impact youth in ways that many with that responsibility cannot. They pull on the heartstrings of youth, eliminate bounty killings, better parent-child relationships, inspire academic success, and so much more. Youth-filled Credible Messenger mentors are often the only reliable persons in their lives. Youth mentors boost their confidence, shift their mentality to be more positive and responsible. Credible Messenger mentors are positive reinforcements that foster productivity, mental and physical well-being of our youth. And so I'm gonna stop there. We do have recommendations at the strategy program level as well as data collection level, but those have already been spoke on. So at this time, I am going to hand it over to, let's see who's up next. I'm gonna hand it over to Gina. And she'll be explaining how the credible messenger is different from community supervision and case management and even mental health services. Thank you.
Thanks, TJ. Before I get started with my talking points, I just have two quick things. I think Erica had introduced me as the assistant administrator, and my title is actually administrative coordinator. Thank you for the short promotion, Erica. And secondly, I cannot wait to tell my kids that I am on Facebook Live. They're not going to believe that I'm on social media. Okay, in my role over the years, I have participated in staffing for youth who are at a higher risk of reoffending. These youth are dealing with many challenges. Some of the challenges include home, school, system involvement, community, negative peers, and social media. I would probably have to say that peer selection and social media are the two biggest challenges that we see in staffing. In response to those challenges, the Milwaukee County Credible Messengers are having real conversations with their youth about social acceptance from their peers and helping them to tap into their natural leadership skills and showing them how to use them in a more positive and meaningful way. They're having crucial conversations about the impact of social media youth on their lives as well as their family lives. They're also assisting with mediation to decrease retaliation that sometimes comes from these social media's youth. Credible Messengers offer an important resource that has been missing for these youth. In 2018, we session services within our network and identifying service and program gaps to help end youth incarceration. We knew we needed services where these youth could feel connected to their provider, someone that looked like them, and who had experienced some of the things that they were experiencing. Through this journey, the Credible Messenger program has broken down and overcome some institutional barriers related to policies and practices. As Milwaukee County continues its efforts to advance racial equity, we are reviewing and revising policies through an equity and inclusion lens, redressing inequities in policies that serves as barriers to equal opportunities, and eliminating some of those barriers to employment. And as Kelly and David had touched on, in 2020, the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution to allow individuals who had demonstrated personal growth after certain criminal convictions to be able to provide care and services to youth. Now, we know Credible Messenger doesn't replace case management or supervision. It's not a substitute for education, employment, housing, or AOTA issues. What Credible Messengers is an important component in the process of growth and healing for these youth. It motivates them to take ownership of their lives and thrive. It gives them accountability tools and provides the support they need to make change happen. Through collaboration between the 5 Credible Messengers organizations, we're starting to see positive and healthy outcomes from community safety to strengthening neighborhoods. I have witnessed the impact of the Credible Messengers model. As my role as administrative coordinator, I oversee a group of service providers in our network. One of those is a residential care facility that we have a unique partnership and we partnership with, and we serve as the sole referral source for them. We had a youth that was placed there, JB. JB was placed there at 15. By the age of 14, JB, who had some child safety involved in his earlier years, his dad was in and out of his life. We suspect and believe that there may have been some DV issues when dad was in his life. But at the age of 14, he had experienced 2 traumatic events. One was he had survived a shootout. 2, he had survived a terrible car accident that was in a high-speed chase. And so when he was placed there, he really didn't have the motivation to change the behavior. He kind of just wanted to do his time, and as the youth would say, go back to the outs. And so I checked in with him a couple of times, try and encourage him and engage him to participate in the programming. Things turned around a little bit once he got closer to pass. And so he started his pass. Pass didn't turn out too good for him the first couple of times. He came back late. And then we also noticed, some of the staff noticed that he was being brought back in different cars, which they suspected was probably stolen vehicles that he was being dropped off in. And so his HSWs connected him with the Credible Messenger. And so I would check in with them from time to time, and I would ask them, how's things going, how's school going, how's your visit, how's your passes going. And every time when I asked about Credible Messenger, I was always get, bro is all right, bro is all right. And so after a few times, we finally got bro is cool. And so I was like, yes, it's finally happening. That relationship is starting to build. Trust is starting to happen between the two of them. And so working with his Credible Messengers helped him to find his motivation. His motivation was school, because he had missed practically his first freshman year of school, and he was going to be transitioning back into a traditional school setting. He wanted to be in his correct classification as a sophomore. And so under the educational program in his RCC, he was able to attain the credits he needed to be classified as a sophomore. And so through that, he was happy about that. And so he was getting ready to discharge. And so I checked in with him again to encourage him, continue to do the good work. And I asked him, how had the Credible Messenger impacted his life, and how had it changed his life? And he responded, it didn't. And there was a brief pause, which seemed like a lifetime to me. And then he said, it didn't change my life, Ms. Gina, it saved my life. At this time, I'll turn it over to Chaz.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Honestly, I enjoy working the Credible Messenger program. It's pretty much like I don't even call it program. I would just say like initiative or movement. Here at YAP, we pretty much adhere to a no reject, no eject policy. Despite the reason why any youth may be systems involved, our door is always open. We stay family involved as far as with the youth as well. We also do individualized service planning, as well as with the assessing. With that being said, we dig in with the informal and formal supports. We go off pretty much a 4 principle type of deal as far as when we deal with the youth and families. And honestly, the 4 principles to us are really like, what do you need to move forward towards your success? How can we help you get towards your goals and success? How can we partner together as equal partners to achieve your goals towards the success as well? And how can you give back to prove to the community and your family and the courts that you're headed towards positive change? There are 3 phases of assessment with us here. We do assessment of the youth and family. When we come in, it's not like a cold call. We get a referral. As soon as we get the referral, we're trying to connect with the youth and family within 24 hours. If there's no phone calls answered, we pretty much beating the door down until we get, a response as far as, okay, hey, this is what we're doing. We're trying to keep you out of trouble, and then we go over the principles and we talk with the family. And partnering with the other 5 agencies has been nothing but golden. If there's a certain resource that we don't have or we can't provide, we pretty much team up. So honestly, to me, we're like mentors and advocates on steroids. If it can't happen, we're trying to figure out how it can happen. And our motto is like, never give up. Try to exhaust every option you can for the youth and family. And I always think back to when we get these youth and some of these families we deal with, they're pretty much like some of the youth are 12, 13, 14. And just imagine being 14 or 13 years removed from any type of structure, any type of resources, any type of real settings as far as people helping you, trying to get your goals, attain things like that, be in school, stay in school. And we really believe in cultural competence. Just a quick analysis of that. You're not gonna call a plumber to fix your car. And that's just it. So we dig deep and we try our best to give these families what they need to create that positive change and those outcomes. And partnering up has been the best. I can't say that enough. It's kind of unique in a way where, we're not all sitting in our, areas of expertise or whatever. And, we come together. I actually got a call today in mid of the webinar asking about jobs for youth. We do have a supportive work program here at YAP where we hire youth to work within the community that they live in. So if they were viewed bad or, they're like a nuisance or call them dentists, the menace to the community. We try to get them in like, we have quite a few. We have restaurants, small business restaurants. We have barber shops that are partnering with us. We have tire shops. We have boutiques for the young ladies, eyelash, Divine Eyelash boutiques as well. I can go on and on as far as how many different job providers that we have in order to give these youth a chance to, build their resume, get their things in order, and actually get some work experience and be paid a real check, opposed to trying to be under the table, hustle for Pookie Ray or whatever the case may be. But it's just giving them a chance, being there, answering that phone when they call. I just know we're all passionate about what we do, and I appreciate everyone that's involved with this effort because they've shown nothing but respect and support throughout the whole entire process. I can go on and on for days, but I just really want to hone in on the fact that cultural competence is key, never giving up is key, and dealing with these families, you cannot give up. You cannot show them, okay, on to the next, Let them know you're there. Let them know that you are trying to help them. Let them know that you do have resources. If you're not the person to do it, here's a phone number, here's a connection. And that's the social capital part of it all. If there are any questions or anything like that, then I can take them, but I don't want to take up too much time, but I just wanted to, key in on the fact that working together has been a big success.
Thank you, Chaz. And yeah, there'll be time for questions at the end. And Danique, I think you're up next.
Yes, thank you. And just a shout out to all the work that's being done. It's so important, the work that's being done. And I'm really, really happy to be a part of everything that we're doing here within the county. But Zero Youth Corrections is essentially just that. Working collectively and collaboratively with internal and external stakeholders and other systems to reduce our youth incarceration rates. Formally, Zero Youth Corrections is a funded position, and my job is to focus on partnerships and resources that are needed to prevent kids from going to Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake, which are our state youth prisons. So it's very much focused on what we need to do here within our community to keep our kids from going there, and doing it in a way that's safety for everyone. It includes that safety for everyone. And we all understand that our young Black males make up more than a majority of the youth within our current system. And this trend has not changed. And in fact, if we understand structural and systemic racism, we know that the system we are all part of is doing its job. The how and how we reduce these incarceration rates, in part, is credible messengers. The heart of the change that we are seeking lies in our community, and our credible messengers represents the best of our community through their lived experiences. And that supports our youth in ways that most of us can't do, but their level of expertise has a ridiculous amount of impact on our youth. And we can see that in all the data, all of the responses, and all of the stories that have already been shared. Without credible messengers, and in reality, our community truly buying in and supporting our youth on every level, we can't do this work. And I can't stress that enough. The need for our community to jump in, to be a part of this, to step up and say, how else can I help? Because the system can't do it alone. Again, the system is designed to do what it's been doing. How do we change that? And we as CYFS, or Children, Youth, and Family Services within the system, have a unique role in working to be as creative as possible to support our youth, to heal our youth using positive, intentional, impactful programming, and not to give up on them. As I often say, these are children. These are children. Our children. This is our village. And we as members of this village, this community, have to be in the business of helping our youth. They cannot do it by themselves. No child wakes up or is born into this world with wanting to have delinquent behavior. We are battling centuries of historical trauma and structural racism, environments that have been created out of oppression, and we cannot expect to change overnight. But in order for us to even see this change, We have to be creative, intentional, and strategic in how we change the narrative for our youth and our community. Our credible messengers have been an integral part of making this happen. Credible messengers in action is prevention, intervention, and healing in real time. And so I hope everyone who is able to participate, listen, and hear all the words that have been spoken, really take that to heart and really understand that we all have to take up this mantle. We all have to be in the business of supporting our youth and our families, because our families are hurting too. That's why our youth are hurting. And so I continue to be a supportive part of this process, our work, everything that we do, and ensuring that we're doing it with a racial equity lens, because that's part of it. That is the real part of that. And so I thank you for letting me participate in this panel, and I'm gonna pass it on to Ms. Charlene Moore, who is the Director of Urban Underground and Youth Justice Milwaukee.
Thank you so much, Danique, and thank you to the Turners and Youth Justice Wisconsin, and just for providing us this opportunity to have this conversation, and also Erica Nelson with Kids Forward. This issue is really close to my heart. And before I even get into anything, I always have a little crowd participation. So as you all are listening, I want you all to, in the chat, give us one word, and the prompt is all young people need. I start this prompt with a lot of my sessions when I'm talking about this talking about this issue, and some of the same things come up, and I'm gonna read some of the things that are coming up in the chat. Love, that usually comes up over and over again. Compassion, support, trust, hope, and love and support and hope, empathy, an adult in their lives, empowerment, grace, relationships, dignity, opportunity, understanding, forgiveness. Oh man, you guys have some awesome words. Being authentic, encouragement, patience, adults who care, belief, like community. These are the things that come up time and time and time again of when we think about what young people need. And I love it when Chaz was just like, we never give up. Danique said, these are our children. She didn't say, well, these are your children in your community. She said, these are our children. And I know some of you and the folks that there's over 100 folks that are on this webinar right now, and even more, hundreds more that may be listening on Facebook Live and other medias. Like, you all remember when we were a community. You all remember when those street lights went on, and you have to be around the house, right? You all remember those times when we talked about what a community looked like and what a community felt like. We fast forward to today, and we know those times are different. I'm gonna read a really short poem, and it's called "'Cause I Ain't Got a Pencil." I woke myself up because we ain't got no alarm clock, dug in the dirty clothes basket because ain't nobody washed my uniform, brushed my hair and teeth in the dark because the lights ain't on, even got my baby sister ready because my mama wasn't home, got us both to school on time to eat a good breakfast. Then when I got to class, the teacher fussed because I ain't got no pencil. By Joshua T. Dickerson. Think about what it is that we're focused on. The teacher didn't even say, man, I've seen you late coming to school all the time. What's going on? A lot of times we don't ask those critical questions. Baby, what you need help with, right? A lot of times we think, that ain't my child. Well, that's just too bad for that family. And we never take the opportunity to engage in a way that brings us back to community. That's why this particular program is again, so dear to my heart, because we need programs like Credible Messengers and others, because it's an opportunity to do not just the or, we'll have this or this, but we need Credible Messengers and other programs that's going to support our young people before they get incarcerated, during the time that they're incarcerated, and after they're incarcerated. We need all of that. But in order for Danique is the zero manager, what is it called, Danique? Give me the name again.
Zero Youth Corrections.
There you go, Zero Youth Corrections. And some people think, ooh, man, zero young people incarcerated. Yes, that's the Northern Star, right? We wanna make sure that we provide every single opportunity as we can. And that's why we need folks like Chaz that are doing Credible Messengers, and many folks like him that are doing this work, which is y'all, heavy work. I've had the opportunity to have a young person live in my home that came out of corrections. It's a lot of work. These young people have been through many traumatic situations and opportunities in their lives that, man, that process of healing is long and hard. And that's why that mentality of never giving up. These young people have the opportunity to focus on self, that inner, and to have the opportunity to also focus on that outer. So as I'm still in this place of, we're still trying to close down Lincoln Hills and Copper Lake, and we're not there yet. And having another youth facility isn't the end all and the be all. It's a small part of the equation. And as we continue to reduce the number of young people that are in these corrective settings, it's important for us to have spaces like this to talk about the work of programs that are working. And there's no magic bullet, you all. Let me tell you that right now. There's nothing magical about, yep, we're going to do this and it's going to solve all our problems. It's a piece of the work, and it's a very important piece of the work. So as we begin to listen and hear about the work that Credible Messenger is doing, please know that I need you all to look inward. I need you all to look at when you walk down the street, and do you scrunch your face up about when you see a young person, or you just say, hey, sweetie, how you doing? You look at them and smile, even though they may not look back and smile at you. But do you give that positive word, and maybe the only positive thing that they may hear that day, right? It's the small things that we are doing in our community. And I want to honor one of the young people that she was in a detention center. And again, I emphasize why this work is so incredibly important. Her name was Maricilia Chaz, and I might be butchering her name, but she was 16 years old. And I want to read a small excerpt from an article that came out some years ago. Maricilia Chaz wanted to keep breathing. In her cell at the Racine County Juvenile Detention Center, she drew the word breath big among the clouds and stars on a poster she hung next to the calendar where she crossed off the days. The drawing was next to her on the wall when she took her last breath, sometime after 10:42 p.m. on December 10th, 2017. Nearby was a crumpled piece of paper. It said, "I'm going crazy in this place." On her desk were journals and poetry. "Everybody got a story that needs to be told," she wrote. "So here I go with mine. Ready, set, and go." Maricilia is one of many young people that may have done some things that ended her in a place that she didn't need to be. We need opportunities, you all. We need options. We need people that are ready to love our young people again. We need community. to share, to say, you know what, these are opportunities. This is where we need resources. This is where we need more funding to go towards. We're about to spend over $40 million on a new youth correction facility. And yes, we need Lincoln Hills and Copper Lakes closed. I'll say that until I'm blue in the face. But we also need more housing for people to be housed. We also need more quality education. We also need better quality healthcare. Like, we can go on and on and on. But let's continue to advocate for these babies. Let's continue to advocate for the needs. And let's continue to support spaces such as Credible Messengers and even give the folks that are doing this work with lived experiences, not easy. Let's continue to give them some love as well. But I thank and appreciate you all, and make sure that we continue to look inward and do our small little part. I appreciate y'all. And
thank you so much, Charlene.
Yeah.
Great way to bring it home. Very powerful. And it's going to be hard for me for 30 seconds until I take my own breath to be able to ask some of these questions. We're getting a lot of love in the chat for all of you. A lot of people reaching out on here. We've got a bunch of questions, people reaching out on Facebook, people texting me. I want to thank folks here in the chat too, like Andron and Rena for offering things and asking some questions and sharing their own personal stories there. So I'm going to ask, right now I have 8 or 9 questions that we've collected, and anyone can feel free to answer them depending on how well poised you feel to answer. They won't be in any particular order, just more or less how we curated them. So first question, somebody wants to know, when and how did this begin? What was the initial impetus that finally sparked this initiative? It seems like it's always been needed. What finally got this off the ground? That's a big, bold starting question. Who wants to cue us in on that?
Kelly, if you want to tag team that.
Yeah, I think so I can say from what started it for us, we knew what we were doing wasn't working. We were spending millions and millions of dollars to incarcerate kids, and incarceration doesn't work. I think we all know this, and incarcerating these kids are coming back home. They're coming back to their communities. And so recognizing what we're doing is not working, and thinking about what can we do that's different. And that's really, for me, what started it. And I know there's been talks about how we do something different. What does different look like? How do we implement? Who are the people? All those conversations for a long time before actually we were able to take action. And I know there is some involvement, and I'll let David speak to this, with some national partners. We went and visited some different communities that had implemented a similar model, and really learning from them, what were some of their challenges, what was working well, what wasn't, and kind of building off what is already being done in other communities. So I'll hand it over to David and what his thoughts were too.
So I definitely appreciate what Kelly just laid out, because the desire has been there. Obviously, when Danique talked about the system doing what it was designed to do, just a little bit about youth aids. Youth aids dollars are dollars that come back to Milwaukee County to support youth programming, but they're calculated based upon how many youth are sent to corrections. So if you're going to sustain programming based upon that, that means you have to guarantee young people going into the carceral system. We have to look, if we're going to advance prevention, in how we can use funding that would support mental health or behavioral health types of interventions, youth development types of interventions, so that there's not a profit incentive to a negative outcome and a harmful door. So when we say no wrong door, that also means no harmful doors, number one. When we looked at the youth aid spend internally in the department and saw that it wasn't being used for the types of things that would keep a young person out, that was a moral problem for me. And they needed a degree of advocacy in the position that I held. I had just come to Milwaukee County from the Office of Violence Prevention, where we had just launched 4-1 for Life and some of those other strategies. And, my mindset was always, how can we advance and lift the strategy of people with lived experience doing direct work? It doesn't mean that just because you've been active at some point in the problem that you're automatically poised to help with the solution. There's a responsibility to help with the solution, but young people they don't need war stories and scared straight in person. What they needed was a level of capacity building, even for those individuals to be able to do the work. So we knew we needed to have some type of training model or standardization that wouldn't break the bank and that would allow multiple agencies to get engaged and really help bring back the youth intervention strategy for teens. There's been a lot. We all saw how the state shifted to Wisconsin Shares as a funding model for youth services. And that became excellent for childcare facilities and after-school programs. But if you're a young person older than the age of 12, there's really nothing left for you. And so all of this happens at the same time as we see one of the biggest spikes nationally in gun violence. And then we start looking at ways to do this institutionally. Then the pandemic happened. And so there was a whole other angle of this where we started an initiative called the We Care Crew. And so we were able to partner with Dr. Akil Bashir from the Professional Community Intervention Training Institute, but there's other folks who are doing this work nationally. Bottom line is Milwaukee needed to plug into the national movement. And we needed to leverage the fact that we have our own indigenous people in this city doing this work, and they just needed to be at the table for people to know their names and for funders and for municipal dollars to go to support those efforts. A lot of folks who see this kind of work, and I'll just land the plane on this, they don't believe that there's people out there who can do this work. I'm from community and I know better. I see it happening every day. And because of that, it was incumbent upon us to help build the lane for it to happen. And we're not all the way there yet. There's still a lot of system muscle memory that we have to break down, but it does take strong advocacy, and that's really how this got started in 2020 through 2021 and now going into 2022.
Into historic context. We have a bunch of other questions here too. So frequently asked questions. So how does somebody find and engage with credible messengers? How can somebody connect with you? From whatever point, maybe I want to find a credible messenger. Maybe my organization wants to partner with credible messengers. Maybe I just won that $700 million Powerball and I want to give it to you. How do folks connect?
Gina, you want to take that one? And Kelly, definitely. If you have if you have that Powerball money, call Kelly.
If you have money, we will take your money, no problem. So, but Gina, go ahead.
Thanks, Kelly. They certainly can connect me. Regina Whiyee, I'll drop my name and email in the chat. I oversee the 5 agencies that we work with: Best Care, Youth Advocate Program, Running Rebels, 414 Life, and who I'm missing?
The Milwaukee Christian
Milwaukee Christian Center. Thank you. And so I oversee those 5 agencies that kind of make up the Credible Messengers programming and services. And so I will drop my information in the chat. But definitely, if you have $7 million that you're looking to give away, please connect with Kelly, and we would love to have your money. And thank you. And I'll do that now before I forget. I'll drop my info.
Thank you too. And could I ask you, we have many people watching this now and people who are going to be watching this in the near future. If you could just speak your email into the world too. For those following, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but for those following, when we edit this and it's on YouTube and it's on Facebook later, we're going to put some of these important links that folks have shared in the chat there in the text, so that if you're watching this in the future, you can also click and reach out to the best contacts as shared by Gina, Kelly, and David.
Okay, thank you, Millie. It's going to be REGINA WHIYEE at Milwaukee County, spelled out, WI.gov. And again, I know on my attendee header it says 3 E's with Whiyee, but it's just 2. And so again, that's regina.ye, WHIYEE at Milwaukee County, WI.gov. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And there are many people, not only in Milwaukee County, but across the state and probably beyond the boundaries of Wisconsin that are watching this. It's such an excellent model. This was such a bold experiment. I really hope that other people will begin to replicate this so that we can bring our babies closer to us. So another question. So, you know, we heard some of the great highlights from TJ. She was explaining some of the expected and unanticipated successes. In your opinion, what were some of the biggest successes? What seemed to work best? And what do you hope to replicate in the future? Who were some of the partners that worked well with you? Not necessarily specifically naming them, but the types of partners that worked well. And are there plans to create relationships with new partners? And I ask this too, because not only did we receive a lot of these questions, but if people are hoping to replicate this, if folks watching this are feeling inspired and they think, oh, you know, we run this group, we have this gym, we have this place, I work with these people, they might want to hear ways that they can visualize themselves as potential partners to be able to link with, to put their shoulder to the wheel to improve our communities for all of us. So if you could just speak to some of those successes, what worked best maybe, and what you hope to replicate, and the types of partners that worked well.
Yes, so I think one of what we found that worked best was our incentivized agreements, which really allowed our partners to stay connected, working together, our partner agencies, and collaborating and really being able to drive the collective impact work, which ultimately gave this community level success that was happening that we saw. We know that from a lot of our credible messengers within like the deep dive of the data, we heard them say that there are certain things that they wouldn't be able to do had it not been for the partnerships with the other partner agencies. So whether it was a partner agency being having those family connections because they work closely with schools, or whether it was another partner agency who had more intel on what was happening in the communities, in the streets, where they would be able to have those that rapport built with each other and be able to tackle situations like that and be able to get the youth the need, or be able to meet the needs of the youth based on each agency's expertise and resources that they had available. So I think that as far as what worked really well, it was definitely the partnerships and collaboration that we saw amongst our partners. And then as far as what could be expanded, we also heard that just based on the training that was received and folks being able to have those hard skills along with their lived experiences and working with youth, there is an opportunity for many youth serving agencies to be able to be a part of this work and connect with youth in different areas of expertise. So I think, as it was stated before, there's all of these different pieces of the puzzle that go into addressing this issue. But we also know that there are a lot of community-based organizations that are doing the work in different areas. And so the more the merrier.
And I would add to that, and Kelly, you might want to speak to this. We submitted for several ARPA-related funding priorities. And one of the major goals that we had with this was to expand our provider network beyond folks who focused on the carceral end of this and the community supervision end of this. This is not a court mandated program. This is not electronic monitoring. This is directly employment of people impacted by the problem, working with people involved in the problem itself. So I would just put that out there. But of the ARPA requests, much of it does focus on expanding this, as well as girls programming to do this in community-based settings. And just briefly, some of the thoughts about this. One of the main reasons that we kind of looked at the level of investment, at the same time that we were working on this, the rate to incarcerate a young person, I think, almost doubled. And so for one young person looking like $400,000 a year to be in Lincoln Hills or Copper Lake. And so the cost of the $1.7 million that we spent to just launch this program was about the cost of 3 young people being locked up for a year. So for us, this was about building an alternative structure that strengthened natural community connections on the front end and did not build a deeper end version of the system or a pipeline to it. And for us, it was just as much a piece of stating our values, principles, and our priorities by this program, given that we're within systems and we're caught between this rock and a hard place of public safety demands, personal accountability, and meeting youth needs. But we know what's more effective, and we definitely know what has been harmful. And because of that, we have to seize this moment.
So true. And so, David, it sounds like it makes so much sense that we would be investing things on the other end of the stream, like up ahead, and not investing so much money in punitive punishments to symptoms. And people view that as radical, and it's just mind-boggling. And I'm so glad that this is occurring. And that also brings us to a couple of questions, and a lot of folks have questions framed in different ways. One of them I want to call out here is, does racist fueled backlash to terms such as CRT or racial equity or culturally responsive affect opinion, access, or funding to credible messengers? And I want to also editorialize the person that asked that question too. Granted that this entire system is based on racism and racist backlash to children and to these manifestations that we see. But does this very contemporary racist backlash to terms such as racial equity, CRT, and culturally responsive affect opinion, access, or funding to this important initiative?
Who's going first?
Yeah, that's a weighted question. And if nobody wants to answer.
Short answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think that, like, when you look at it like this, and I'm shocked y'all didn't jump at that one. All right. So look, when you look at the mood in reaction to the last 2 to 3 years of increases in violence and community level violence, and the conversation around it, people have a right to expect public safety and accountability, but at the same time, if we are really facing what we're facing as a people, as a nation, and as a city, then we should be much more mindful of how much our so-called solution has created the problem. And we know what happened in the 90s. We know what happened policy-wide. We know what the last 20 years have done. We know what it has done to the various zip codes of the city, what it has done to really destroy families. And so when you made the statement earlier, Emilio, about just how you're glad that this is happening, make no mistake about it. This challenges the business model of misery in Milwaukee, and as it relates to the state of Wisconsin. And so whatever political rhetoric people have going on, they also have to talk about, okay, what can we have that's closer to the problem, that is more immediate, and that will demonstrate a change. I don't believe it's a either or scenario for where we are currently right now, because I'd have a hard time telling somebody who lost their child to gun violence that person doesn't have to be away from society for a little bit. But it does mean, how many people did that young person come in contact with that had an opportunity to intervene, that could have done something that would have made the difference had we might have invested more in those areas: housing, education, economic development, the entire systemic lift. Because we can't talk Band-Aid solutions and quick fixes. And we certainly can't do it on a shoestring budget that will go away after a year or two because people don't have the patience to look in the mirror. Bottom line is, there's at least 5 touch points that a young person who comes in contact with a gun has with some other system that should be accountable for those outcomes of that youth. And so we have to look at ourselves and see what we need to do different as systems, but that doesn't mean you treat the strategy that stops the immediate hemorrhage right in the community setting right now, instead of putting them 4 hours away from Milwaukee.
Amen to that. I'd like to make what you just said mandatory viewing for everybody. A couple other little logistical questions here too. There seems to be a waiting list for young people to participate. Kids seem to be, based on a couple of responses and questions from viewers. How do we navigate that waiting list? What's the waiting time before a young person is able to get a mentor? What are the steps that you're able to take or we're able to help with to address that? And again, I'm going to open that up for everybody.
So, Gina,
Go ahead, Cal.
sorry. So there is, I will say there, regarding the wait list, we have had a wait list for this program pretty much from the beginning, which is good because people are referring and people want to connect kids, but it's obviously we're not able to serve all those kids at one time. I will say there's currently a wait list of kids for some agencies, but other agencies do have openings. And so kids are trying to be matched as much as possible with the agency that is most, that they feel the youth can both benefit and that they can help meet their needs, their family. So we try to do that matching as much as possible, or if a youth or family have a preference for an agency that they want to work with. And so when we talk about how do we get rid of that wait list, it really goes again to the resources. And David did mention this earlier. We do have some ARPA related funding for identified for 2020 for the next 2 to 3 years related to building out capacity of our current providers who are doing this work, but also being able to expand and work with additional people. So that is our plan. But when we talk, I wasn't kidding when I said, if you have money, if there's funding out there that we can expand what we're doing with credible messengers, with our whole continuum of services, programming, interventions, strategies here in Milwaukee. We are open to that. And we're always trying to explore alternative and new funding options. Because going back to, again, the daily rate that we're spending to incarcerate a kid and thinking about what we could do with that amount of money here in Milwaukee and reinvesting it here. So we definitely recognize the need to expand, and we are doing that, but it takes everyone to come together to do that.
I would also just the work with Public Welfare Foundation that has been done with that Danique is leading for the county, and the participatory budgeting work that we did with the Turners on that. It's going to need some interface of philanthropy, and philanthropy doesn't necessarily want to give money to government, but it's absolutely going to have to happen. And it has to be matched by an even bigger amount of money in municipal dollars if we want to make an impact on young people's lives and reverse the trends that we're seeing.
Chrissy and the other Turners on our end and the great work that we had the opportunity to do with you and Danique and Kelly and everybody, we're very proud of the Zero Youth Corrections Youth Opportunity Budget, the local community partners were able to fund. And even though it's a small drop in the bucket, I mean, if we're looking at over $400,000 per year to put a child away, to punish one, essentially putting them in a cage in a box to be tortured, with the end results not unlike what that poor young woman who was the subject of Charlene's talk crashed into. We have failed them. Like, those are our children, and that small opportunity to make an impact is what it's all about. So maybe a final question before I have the chance to flip this back over to Erica. And there's lots of questions. There's fantastic things in the chat. I'll try to figure out some way to share these, from mechanical questions to deep philosophical questions on dismantling the structures that create this devil in the first place. How do you promote the word and the work of credible messengers? What's needed to promote and expand it farther? The results speak for themselves. They're fantastic. And for many folks that are viewing, we took advantage of the fact that the Turners have almost 8,000 person email list. We have this broad social media, and I know you all, the participants, have shared this as well. But for many people viewing, it seems to be the first time that they've had an opportunity to see this silver lining, this thread of a thoughtful, intentional response that's not, like you said, upholding the business model of misery that seems to be the norm here in Milwaukee. How do we promote this? How do we get this up and elevated so that maybe other people can model this in their communities? We can expand this. What are ways that the county and the participants are able to sing about some of these great accomplishments from the rooftops?
Well, I think now that we're going out of pilot into the full structure, once we're there, you know, Gina, Kelly, and I know TJ, you know, is producing another piece of the evaluation. Please speak to that for folks to be aware of.
Yeah, so one of the recommendations coming from the findings was around increasing visibility and awareness, really to demonstrate the value of the work, but also to increase better processes amongst our system partners, and folks knowing like this is credible work, this is valuable work that's happening. So in doing that, we are putting together a visual production of the work, and moving beyond our traditional data collection methods, whether it's the numbers or whether it's the qualitative work, but putting a visual piece to it, and being able to capture what we saw out of those findings and those results. And then also working with some mainstream media to highlight the work that our credible messengers are doing, as well as elevating the youth voice in the work. So Gina, Kelly, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, but that's definitely one of our priorities as a result of what we saw in evaluation.
Thanks, TJ. We also try and be at some of the community events that's happening in the community as well to bring some awareness and education. And so it's typically during the summer when the weather is nice, you know, that we have the opportunity to participate in a lot of community engagement activities. But just to echo what TJ said, we're really excited about the two impact awareness projects that we have going on. The first one is set to start early next week. And so hopefully we'll be able to finalize that by the end of the year and be able to preview that and showcase that. Again, all of the good work that the credible messengers are doing.
The Turners or the other folks listening can help in that. We're looking forward to connecting. There are more resources that were shared here in the chat. And again, we'll try to curate that so that those watching in other areas, and there are hundreds, can also have access to those. Before I run through and just explain some of our other upcoming forums, I'm going to flip this back over to Erica, who's going to take us home.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everyone for like an incredible last 90 minutes. It maintained the ongoing sense of urgency and paired it with some optimism about, some real optimism about what and how we can do the work differently for youth, and, you know, alternative structures that are available. And I think this webinar and the folks that are participating actively in the chat and elsewhere demonstrates that there's a lot of work to be done to educate people on the value of the credible messengers and the forces at play, and how it takes multiple approaches, different agencies, stakeholders, individuals, communities. And so I, during the last hour and a half, you know, put together my own hand version of like just a collection of all, not all, a handful rather of the nuggets of information and points that came out today. So I just want to say, you know, here are some of them. Put the public back in public safety. It lies in the community. It takes work. We need options. We need to get these youth and these children what they need. Credible Messengers is about growth and healing. We have to be creative. This work has great richness and impact on the community and the youth that it serves. We all have to be in this. These are our children. We never give up. Never give up. Partnering with these other agencies, the way that the agencies have partnered across the board and been in in this together. So you said partnering with the other 5 agencies has been golden. That is something you don't always hear in this work. So that's amazing. And again, it is about changing the narrative, right? And changing the approach. So thank you all very much. And continue to, Youth Justice Wisconsin will continue and to work with others to educate about these programs and this really good work that's taking place. And I think there's so much information, but we need to continue to invest in these programs and, keep those with lived experience and those that are in community at the forefront of doing the work. So there's a survey that will be popped into the chat about the panel and the webinar today. So please fill that out. And thank you all very much. And I'll hand it back over to Emilio to do some final housekeeping.
Yeah, thank you too, Erica. Also a big shout out to Ann McCullough for helping us, Ann McCullough-McKeag for helping us put this together, for engaging and answering many of the questions in the chat. Appreciate that. I easily speak for all of us here at the Turners. So grateful and in awe of what the Credible Messenger program is, how revolutionary it is, the direct and measured impact that underscores the credible and credible messenger. Thank you, Gina, Kelly, TJ, David, Charlotte, and Chaz, Danique, really for sharing the time with us and for investing in this, investing back into Milwaukee so that we can begin this process of healing and at least touching the lives of some of the young people that we have systemically and generationally let down. This is very moving, it's very important, and it's going to be hard to segue for some of these other things, but if you want to keep in contact with these beautiful people and the incredible work that they're doing, we'll share those contact information, and indeed some of them have. Our listeners, if you haven't voted yet, please make sure you do so on November 8th. You can find out what's on your ballot and where to vote at myvote.wi.gov. Hope to see you Monday, October 31st for our next Vel Phillips Forum, which is part 2 of an eye on local and state government. 2 days ago, we did one on the city government, which was very engaging and moving. This Monday, we're going to have an eye on the county government, the county edition, where we'll have some of our county supervisors, as well as hopefully some folks from the county and from the courts. The link for that is bit.ly/101-govt/part2. So you can join us there. We'll share that in case I've misread that, when my thick Brooklyn accent is getting in the way of all your Wisconsin ears. Additional tools also for voting can be found on Disability Right Wisconsin's website, disabilityrightswi.org. And if you're looking for paid work, ASHA, which does a great job with addressing domestic violence, is hiring for 3 positions. You can find that in ASHA's website here. They're hiring for 3 Milwaukee positions. Turning Tables Tavern is hiring cooks and staff right now. So if you want to work in the only Black woman-owned and operated tavern here in downtown Milwaukee, located in historic Turner Hall, go to turningtablesmke.com. Also, their food is great, and the fish fry debuts Friday. And contact us at the Milwaukee Turners for sound mind trainings if you want nonpartisan civic engagement trainings on everything from what to do during law enforcement encounters to bystander intervention de-escalation trainings, to even basic trainings on what is local government and how does it work. You get to play with folks like me and Chrissy and our great staff. Darren Madison, Juan Arevalo, and Lexi Lee will come to your school, your community group. That's fantastic. And once again, I'd like to thank our panelists, our guests, our co-producer, Chrissy Fung, and of course, the great folks who co-sponsor the Milwaukee Turners Vel Phillips Forum, Disability Rights Wisconsin, Foundations for Freedom, A Made Man Worldwide, Marquette University Center for Urban Research, Teaching, and Outreach, MICA, which is Milwaukee's Inner City Congregations Allied for Hope, National Lawyers Guild Milwaukee, Rid Racism Milwaukee, and Wisconsin Voices. If you're interested in becoming a co-sponsor or just getting involved with us or any of the great folks you heard, feel free to visit MilwaukeeTurners.org or our Facebook group, A Lead to Transparent Life. Just reach out. Until next time, friends, please take care of one another and And my thoughts are with you all as we do this important work. Have a great one.